As long as I was going after the crooks that didn't have badges, I was everybody's hero.
Well, Vic, it's good to see you, sir, and I really like your shirt. It's a Henry Lee Lucas shirt for that movie Henry.
It's another one of my vintage shirts. I hope the neck's not all worn out on this one like it was on my
good,
last
man.
one.
Looks good.
Yeah, I bought this when the movie first came out. Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer.
Oh, man.
You know, this movie is still ranked in the top 10 for movies to watch at Halloween.
That's weird.
And some people even call it true crime when there's nothing in it that's true. Nothing.
What do you think the filmmakers think now that this Netflix thing has come out and it's like totally proven to be bogus?
They're laughing all the way to the bank. They don't care. Netflix proving it is bogus has just made more people want to watch it. I've seen so much on social media about this crazy movie.
Wow.
Yeah, and not a bit of it true. Not a bit of it.
Oh man!
But a lot of people are going to live and die thinking this is the true story of Henry Lucas.
Well, that's what we're going to cover today. And that's why you're wearing that sweet shirt.
Yeah.
So we're going back into a little bit of Henry here because we have a great article by a gentleman by the name of Mike Cox. And we've talked about Mike Cox in the past, Vic. Tell me a little bit about Mike so we can catch
Cox,
people up on it.
Former reporter for the Austin Statesman. That's where he was working when he did this puff piece for the
This
Rangers.
little gem. Oh, no.
Yeah. I used to refer to him as the media whore for the FBI. Not the FBI, for the DPS.
For Jim Adams, right?
The media whore for Jim Adams.
And you said after the Statesman let him go because of his extreme bias on certain stuff, Jim Adams picked him up and put him on payroll, and he's working for him, right?
Right. Now, I don't know for a fact they let him go because I haven't seen a piece of paper that said, Mike Cox, you're fired.
Right.
But that was the general knowledge, and that was the word on the street at the time that he went to work for Jim Adams. And he didn't miss a day. I mean, he went straight from working for the Austin American Statesman to working for Colonel Jim Adams at the state police. And even while he was working, I've said this before, even while he was getting paid by the Austin American Statesman, he was still working for Jim Adams because he was doing this kind of puff piece all the time. We've talked about this case before.
This is the case of Clemmy Curtis.
Yes, the policeman who committed suicide. And if you haven't watched our podcast with Hugh Ainsworth, journalist Hugh Ainsworth, go back and watch it. It's on YouTube, and we also have it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, everything where you can find a podcast if you want to just hear the audio. But Hugh knows a lot about this case.
Yes.
He talked about this case, and there's just, this was a suicide.
Right.
This was a policeman who sat down one evening outside of his patrol car and killed himself. And because he committed suicide, his wife wasn't going to get the pension.
Right.
Yeah, some of his life insurance wasn't going to pay off. And it was a kind of a bad deal. And I feel sorry for the widow. I do.
Sure.
And I feel sorry for Clemmy Curtis, what all he must have been going through.
He's only 30 years old when
I
he
know, and
suicide.
put a gun to his head and pull the trigger. Very sad. A lot of our policemen are under such stress, and today they're under even more stress than they were back then. So don't hate your cops. Let's weed out the bad ones. Let's change the training so it's not us against them mentality. Let's make it okay to violate the law enforcement brotherhood. Matter of fact, let's make it where if you don't violate it, it's not okay. If you don't tell on a policeman that's doing something wrong and you're a policeman, it's not okay. Violate that law enforcement brotherhood. I've told the story before about Cappy Eads, DA in Bell County. He and I were friends. And when the Lucas grand jury started, and he called, said, Vic, I need to see you. And I said, what? He said, I can't tell you on the phone. I got to tell you in person. Man, I thought he had some good information for me. He said, and come by yourself.
Yeah.
Now that made me feel a little
Come
funny.
alone.
Yeah, come alone. But I did. Went and sat in his lobby for a good long while. I think so they could get the tape recorders all hooked up.
Jeez.
And he says to me, Vic, I can't be your friend anymore. I brought you down here. I drove 45 miles just to sit there. 45 miles one way. So he can say, Vic, I can't be your friend anymore because you have violated the law enforcement brotherhood. Right or wrong, you shouldn't have done it. Now that's what got me, right or wrong. He doesn't care what's right. Just right or wrong, you shouldn't have done it. That's like these people who say America, right or wrong. That was a bumper sticker during the Vietnam War. Really? America, right or wrong.
Oh, God.
No, man. America should be right. Don't support what's wrong, even if it's done under the American flag, even if it's done in the name of the government, even if it's done in the name of a police department, your fellow officers. Don't support what's wrong. Do what's right. Have the courage to do what's right. You know, courage.
Amen.
We're going to be talking about raising the consciousness and the evolution of consciousness.
Yeah.
And the breaking point where the consciousness can begin to raise is at the level of consciousness called courage. Under that is a bunch of stuff that's not going to get you anywhere. Pride, pride, it's good enough for the Marines, but it's not good enough if you're going to evolve your consciousness. You're an order taker and proud of some symbol or organization. And other levels of consciousness like despair. Oh man, despair is one of the worst you can be in because then you don't care what happens to you. Apathy, not caring. So sometimes to get angry can actually be a good thing. Now, I don't advocate anger. I want us all to move beyond anger as a way of dealing with issues. However, if you're way down in places like apathy and despair, and suddenly you feel the anger stirring within you, and that's what's going on in our streets today.
Yeah, I'd say.
The anger can then lead into courage, which then can blossom into other ways of looking at things and into a higher level of consciousness. And that's what I'm hoping for here. But anyway, yeah, I used to call Mike Cox the media whore for the FBI. Lucas Task Force lays old tragedy to rest. This is January 27th, 1985.
1985, all
now,
right.
This is an important date because this is like 3 weeks after Colonel Jim Adams found out I was going to be investigating the task force.
Okay, perfect.
Because Ned Butler had told Ron Border. Ron Border hops in his car, goes and tells Bobby Prince and tells Colonel Jim Adams. Colonel Jim Adams, well, look what the media whore did for Colonel Jim Adams and the task force.
God.
They find a case. Where was this? Virginia? Or?
This was West Virginia.
West Virginia.
West Virginia.
Take me home.
Yep.
Anyway, they found a case where this poor policeman had committed suicide.
Correct.
And what they do is they get Henry Lucas to confess to murdering this policeman when it was obvious that it was suicide. It had already been closed as a suicide.
Right.
Go back and listen to Hugh Ainsworth. Like I said, he talks a lot about this case. He investigated this case thoroughly.
Right.
And you'll love listening to Hugh tell all the reasons why everybody knew that this was not a suicide.
Right.
Now, there's an interesting name in here.
There's a lot of names in here, Vic, but please do tell.
Bob Werner. And for Bob Werner, the assistant chief of criminal law enforcement for the Department of Public Safety, it demonstrated how the Lucas Homicide Task Force in Georgetown has been working. Ooh, it works.
It works.
Bob Werner
Works
was
great.
their boss. He was one of the deputies under Colonel Jim Adams.
Interesting.
Another one of his right-hand men right along there with Border. And guess what? I have a picture of Bob Werner.
Where?
He's one of the men walking me up the sidewalk in handcuffs when I'm in handcuffs.
Ooh.
Yeah, so Bob Werner, who was working with the task force and bragging on the task force.
Because it works, Vic. It
It
really
works, man. We can get Henry Lucas to confess to a suicide.
Yeah.
Just so this poor widow woman can get her insurance.
Right.
And I'm glad she got her insurance. I think they should have paid her anyway. Suicide should be something that if a policeman does it, damn, man, he must be under so much stress. You know, where's the police union when you need them? Don't be in there taking up for cops that kill people. Don't be in there taking up for cops that do the wrong thing. But when you got a policeman that's under so much stress that he sits down and shoots himself, take care of his widow. Yep. Do what you can. Negotiate with your own insurance company for that union and for the city to make sure that even if one of your policemen is under so much pressure and stress he kills himself, that policy should pay.
Agreed.
That policy should pay because it's just one of the hazards of the job. Mm-hmm. Just like with our military now.
Yep.
Holy cow.
All the PTSD.
The veterans we have committing suicide now.
Yep. It's sad.
Which is another reason. And I had another shirt I almost wore that says, "We'll work for weed." And I will work for the legalization of weed because if it were legal, this would be something that could be used besides prescription drugs to help people ease the stress when they get home. Mm-hmm. You know, and it would also cut down on the number of black men that are and Mexican American men who are being murdered on the street by men in blue because they think they might have drugs on them.
Yeah.
Let's make this stuff legal. Let's tax it. Let's get some money into our coffers for our states and our federal government because our infrastructure is crumbling. Our tax base is destroyed. Where's the money going to come from? You know, we need to do everything we can. If the Texas legislature does not legalize weed this next term, they're even bigger idiots than I've been giving them credit for. And I tell you, I really think you're a bunch of idiots, except for maybe 5 or 6 of you. And, oh my God, one of my favorite one is not going to run for re-election. Senator Kirk Watson.
Oh.
Yeah, he's leaving. And I love Kirk Watson.
He's had enough.
He's had enough. I would vote for Kirk Watson if he were running for president. I would.
Nice.
I was in law school with Kirk Watson. He was a year or two behind me. I remember I was judging one of his practice court trials. First time I had ever laid eyes on him. Mm-hmm. And here I am. I'm just about graduated, studying for the bar, all that. And he's the new group coming up into practice court.
Cool.
And I remember looking at him and thinking, this guy's going to make it, man. I'm going to keep an eye on this guy. He's good. And he was. He was a good trial lawyer. He was a good mayor of Austin. And he's a good state senator. And
that's cool, man.
I really wish him the best, whatever he's going to be doing in his future career, because he's a top-notch guy.
Cool, man.
Yeah.
Maybe looking into mediate some of our cases. Need some people with some wisdom.
He might charge too much. Oh man, Kurt Watson's got a brain. He really does. He can be solving this country's problems for us.
That's cool, man.
He could.
We need that, but we need those people in positions of power, though, Vic.
Yeah, we do. And I love Donna Howard. She was my state rep when I was when I lived in Austin, and I think she's still going to be there. And so there's some real good ones. So we need to look at changing some of these rules so that if our policemen do commit suicide, they still get their pensions.
Smart.
They still get their insurance. Same with our military. Our government should take better care of our veterans. And I tell you, if our policemen smoked weed, they'd be better policemen. And if our veterans could smoke weed, they wouldn't be having to take those pharmaceuticals that kill them in their sleep.
Yeah.
So anyway, Bob Warner.
So Bob Warner.
He was at my arrest. Warner recently began spending part of his time assisting the task force, which is without precedent in American law enforcement history. Well, you know, Mike Cox, I got to say that's probably true. They are without precedent in law enforcement history because they created the biggest hoax ever perpetrated on the American public.
Pow.
As far as law enforcement goes. I mean, all these cases that they let Henry confess to, and this being one of them. And this wasn't even a murder. But here's Guy Cox, because, not Guy Cox, I can't say
Mike Cox.
Mike Cox, because Guy Cox is a great guy.
Yeah.
Guy Cox is a lawyer here in Waco, and he was the lawyer that Judge George Allen appointed to represent Henry Lucas during the Waco grand jury.
Right.
But Mike Cox, media whore for the DPS, they were working to get this out before my grand jury started, because I started noticing all of the PR coming out for the Rangers before we started our grand jury. Because we had to put it off for a couple months because I had to go to Cleburne to try the Mudir Deeb case in the Lake Waco triple murder situation that I handled from start to finish.
Right.
Me and Ned Butler, Truman Simons, Dennis Byer, a few other good names that really had, Dave Deaconson. Dave's a good lawyer here in Waco. I've bragged on him before.
You have? Yeah.
I'd like to see him in public office. I hold him in as high esteem as I do Kurt Watson.
Nice.
He's that kind of honest, solid person with a brain.
With a brain.
With a brain. Werner says that officers of 89 agencies in 29 states plus Canada have appointments to see him.
Right, back when they were just running cops through with Lucas and he'd just sign off on them.
Yeah.
This is when they would send their files down, right, so we could review them before.
And seeing this is 1985, so they had already been doing this for a good while.
Yeah.
So even after they had been doing this for a couple years, they had 89 agencies in 29 states and Canada with appointments to see Lucas.
Right, and it says even further, it says more than 3,000 murder cases have been discussed with Lucas, and about 600 officers have already talked to him. That's insane.
That's insane.
That volume is insane.
That's insane. And they were just willing to buy it left and right, man.
Yeah.
I mean, they were buying it like it was a fire sale. They were buying it as quick as they could, and there was absolutely no truth to it.
None.
Goes on to say, despite the staggering number of killings, Prince, that's Ranger Bob Prince, said the West Virginia case was extraordinary. Of all the cases so far, this one stands out, Prince said. This one makes you feel good. Well, go listen to Hugh Ainsworth. So anyway, he goes up there. He sits in the courtroom with Henry, carries Henry into the courtroom.
Of course.
And Henry pleads guilty to shooting this policeman with his own gun.
With his own gun.
Now, he didn't shoot him with another gun. He shot him with the policeman's own gun, and I staged it to look like a suicide.
Wow, man.
That was my MO. My MO was I didn't have a MO.
Yeah.
Every one I did was different.
Oh, God.
And if it happened, I'd done it.
I done did it.
I'd done it. So, when Prince returned from Virginia, Prince was carrying an appreciation plaque presented to him the night before. So they had a little party.
Yeah.
And remember, I told you that Henry told us about that party. Henry got to come to the party and not even wear handcuffs and was rubbing shoulders with all these law enforcement people.
Cutting cake and everything for everybody.
And here's a guy who says, I just killed one of your people. And they're throwing him a party.
It's defies all logic.
Yeah, Henry thought that was a little weird too.
Like, man, I think this is weird.
Prince was carrying this appreciation plaque presented the night before. Plus, he had plaques for Smith and Boutwell.
Nice.
That's nice.
Yeah, why not? Why not? Everybody wins here.
By your efforts, we have learned the truth and at last found peace. That's what the plaque said.
Wow.
I wonder if that plaque is hanging on his wall.
It's a good question.
That would embarrass me if I were him.
Yeah. Yeah.
By your efforts, we have learned the truth and at last found peace. Well, I'm sorry. I'm glad you got the insurance money, but
there's no doubt.
There's no peace here unless you can come to peace with the idea that your husband committed suicide, because that's what happened.
Right.
We need to take better care of our policemen. Let's not hate them just because they're in blue. Let's hold the bad ones accountable. Let's change the training. But don't give them a hard time, people, just because they're policemen, because believe it or not, you may not want to admit it right now, but believe it or not, you need them.
Yep.
You need them. We just need for them to be better.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. This is my favorite quote of this article, Vic. I like this one. If it hadn't been for the task force, the Curtis case would still be considered a suicide. Whoa.
Well, sorry to break it to you guys.
But this is what we talked about is the motivating factor for the Texas Rangers to continue this. Mm-hmm. Even when they knew it was wrong. It was, being congratulated, being given the plaques, getting those news articles written about him. Thanks for solving this. You did a good thing for us. Thanks, Rangers. This was it. Here's an article that displays that motivation.
Exactly. Now, here's something I don't understand. Because if you go back and listen to Hugh Ainsworth, what was that, 37 and 38? 36 and 37.
Like 4 episodes with him.
Somewhere in there. Go find it. You'll enjoy it. Hugh is a real character. He's fun to listen to. He's brilliant. And man, that guy's got a history.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's been like an eyewitness to a lot of history. But listen to what he says about it. 2 of the officers brought photos when they first came to talk to Lucas.
Okay.
Now, we know that Boutwell would make them send in their files ahead of time.
Right.
So this wasn't Henry's first contact with this. Henry and Clemmy both, Clemmy Schroeder, told me about how Prince and Boutwell both were leaning on Henry to take this case. Oh, Henry, you'll be doing such a good thing for this poor widow woman that's not getting her husband's money, and what's one more, and all that kind of stuff. They knew, man. They absolutely knew. People ask me all the time, how could they be so stupid? They weren't stupid. They knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
They were just being dishonest. 2 of the officers bought photographs of 8 Huntington police officers. One of them was Curtis, who Bivens said Lucas immediately identified as the man he had killed. Now, how did that happen?
Dun, dun, dun. Probably the way he did in all the other cases, Vic.
Are you sure about that, Henry? Are you sure it's this one, Henry? Maybe you better look up in the top left corner, Henry. No, it wasn't a 38, Henry. You better think some more. I wish we had the video of this one. I bet it would play just like some of the other videos.
I guarantee it would, Vic. And judging by what the article said, too, it said at some point he said he killed somebody who was handcuffed in West Virginia. So instantly they were like, oh, yeah, we have this cop dead in West Virginia. It's got to be him.
Yeah.
It's just...
Yeah, but totally different scenario, totally different set of facts, different time of day, everything was different. Go listen to Hugh. He explains it all really well. So this was them gearing up to go after Vic Feazell by putting out all this good PR about
how good the Rangers were.
How good they were. Plus
Lucas
they had
task force lays old tragedy to rest.
They had
God bless them.
3 more plaques to hang on the wall. Hi, I'm Vic Feazell. During these trying times, you might want to just stay home. And at the law offices of Vic Feazell, we understand. That's why we're set up to handle your personal injury claim without you even having to come in. Just give us a call, and we'll take it from there. We can send any paperwork straight to your smartphone or computer. Don't delay, because if we don't put money in your pocket, you don't owe us anything. I'm Vic Feazell.